Hi, guys. Welcome to the latest episode of the Lion and the Liverbird podcast. We've spoken about transfers. We've spoken about what our expectations are from the two new managers at Liverpool and Chelsea, respectively. One team seems to be doing pretty well in the preseason. That's Liverpool, surprisingly. The other team, maybe not surprisingly, I don't know, unsurprisingly, they aren't doing that well. That's Chelsea. I believe they lost to Celtic 4-1 and then they drew with Wrexham. Uh, Things don't look that good for Chelsea presently. I know it's only preseason, but still, like there are talks of some players being sold, some players who were actually important for them last season. So we'll get our resident Chelsea expert, Rohit, on this side. So, Rohit,
Uh,
what's going on with Chelsea? I mean, what's the latest that's going on with
hello,
Chelsea?
hello. Yeah, the latest that's going on in the Chelsea circus is a lot, but let's just start off with some of the results that you talked about, right? And I like that you brought up the Liverpool perspective because we'll come to that later. But like you said, Chelsea drew with Wrexham, who are two leagues below them currently. They drew 2-2 and they were almost about to lose. They got completely, clobbered by Celtic 4-1. But midweek, they had a decent result against Club America, the Mexican side. They won 3-0. But Club America obviously is, again, a couple of tiers below Chelsea. So at least the trend is good, but, we don't know how much to trust. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is, Enzo Maresca and his system, right? Because I think that's the biggest reason why Chelsea have had a hard
So
time in the
just to
preseason. Yeah,
interject a little bit, this is what I think of preseason, right? I don't think the results of preseason matter.
agree.
What I think preseason is getting the players A into a system because
Hmm.
obviously there are two new managers that we'll talk about, and B getting their fitness.
Hmm.
I think that's most important because I remember there was this season where I think we lost almost every preseason game and we ended up winning either it was the Champions League or the Premier League title. So I don't really give results of preseason that much of a importance. But yeah, the system, how the players are fitting into it, and obviously the fitness. So go ahead with the system bit. Yeah.
Yeah, you made some very good points. So let's start off with the system, right? So we know Pochettino was playing his standard like 4-3-3 kind of a thing last year. There it was a standard kind of system, nothing too fancy going on. Although towards the end of the season, he did invert Cucurella, the left back, into midfield to give more support to our number six. But this year, Maresca is playing a very specific, very different system, right? It lines up as a 4-3-3, but in the game, it's quite different. So in Maresca's system, the two wide defenders have very specific roles. One of the wide defenders, so either the left back or the right back, he joins the two other center backs to form three at the back. And the other wide defender, so if the right back joins the center back, the left back joins the number six as a defensive midfielder. So there's this kind of shift that goes on in the back. And of course, the six remains the six. And then you have the two other eights in the system. The eights basically bomb forward and help out the front three. And so you have five at the back, the three central defenders, and two kind of number sixes, so to speak, one inverted, one standard. And you have five people going forward, two wide wingers, one central forward, and these two eights who play in the half spaces. So there's a lot of movement, a lot of moving parts, obviously, a lot for the players to comprehend and be able to execute on the field. So I think this is not something simple because you have to know when to invert, how to invert, who covers which man, who covers which positions. And learning that takes time, as you said, right? So the results don't really matter initially, but they can also be an indicator of how quickly the players are picking up the system, and we'll see. So today Chelsea is playing Man City in a friendly. So today, hopefully, we'll be able to see a better version of Maresca's system. So here I wanted to ask you, right? Like Maresca has had the team for about 3 weeks now, right? How long do you think professional footballers should take to adapt to and learn and understand a completely drastically new system?
That's very interesting you pointed out because I think one reason why we went with Arne Slot is because it was a very similar system to what Jurgen Klopp and Pep Guardiola play. Arne Slot actually watched or checked out clips of Guardiola, Arteta, and Jurgen Klopp. So that's why I think Liverpool have been a little better in
Hmm.
preseason, at least in terms of how the players are executing their new roles. Now, coming to your question, professional footballers, I believe, shouldn't take more than maybe a month, maybe 2 months to understand the new system. Now, we must understand that when they are at a certain club with a certain manager, certain ideas filter through, and that's what you become. But we can't say that for Chelsea, right? Because there's been so
Yeah.
many changes. It's difficult for them to, stick to one certain style of football or one certain style of formation or even the instructions. For example, if a left wing is supposed to, like what you've said about the defense, right? Now you're playing basically 5-on-5.
Hmm.
That is very difficult. I believe I would say that. I'm not a
Yes.
professional footballer, obviously. But it's very difficult for someone to understand when to shift into that position, when that right back should bomb forward and move into the midfield. That will take time. And especially, I think it'll be a little more time consuming for Chelsea because you have such a young squad. We
Yeah.
must understand that, most of your players are very young. They are in their, I think, mid 20s, maybe even
Early,
like
early
22,
20s, early
early
20s
20s.
to
Yeah,
mid
exactly.
20s. Yeah.
So you can pretty much imagine, like when we were in our mid 20s, you can like, what were we doing? So I think it will take time. I do believe Chelsea is again another project.
Hmm.
We discussed this that Maresca needs to be given time. I don't think you'll get instant results because again these players are not the finished product. They're learning a completely new system. The manager is completely new to the Premier League, although he has experience with Man City, I believe, like he was one of their young youth coaches, etc. So I think they will take some time, maybe a month, maybe 2 months, maybe a little longer. Who knows? Because when Potter was there, it took time and it didn't click really. Pochettino, I think you started to seeing better results with like the last 2-3 months of the season.
Yeah, yeah. I think,
So
yeah, you make a very good point actually. So I think it'll at least take a month or two for for Enzo Maresca's ideas to actually translate on the pitch. And so Chelsea fans really need to temper their expectations for the first 2 months of the season. There will be losses, there will be games where we obviously can't figure things out, but people have to be patient. And people have to be patient because the system that you talked about, all the Chelsea kind of technical directors are all in to this Maresca system. So we've
mhm,
hired like a youth coach who's going to implement this in our youth system. Been a complete overhaul of our academy, and we are also trying to implement the same system in Strasbourg, our sister team, essentially, which the Blue Co company owns. And so basically, all Chelsea entities will try to play the same way with inverted kind of fullbacks and one of the fullbacks joining the center back. But we'll have to give him time. That's a very good point. And now, let's talk about a couple more things about the system, right? And specifically about the suitability of the squad to the system. And I specifically want to start off with two very important players for Chelsea, Reece James and Malo Gusto. Both of them are right back, attacking right backs who are very good going forward, putting in crosses, and basically being contributors to our goals and assists, right? However, in Maresca's system, both of these guys will have to invert into midfield and act basically as the second number six or a central midfielder. So the question is, are we blunting, two of our most potent attacking threats by putting them into midfield? So for Reece James, I think it's good in a sense because he's very injury prone. We've talked
mhm,
about this, and actually we talked about this in our podcast that if he moves into midfield, he'll have to make less of these dynamic runs again and
correct.
again, which might mean that he can sustain longer in the season. So although I'm sad about not being able to see Reece James bomb forward, there's an upside to it. Malo Gusto, I'm not very sure. He's been doing pretty decently in preseason, but Malo Gusto's crosses basically led to a whole number of assists. So, what do you think about this? Right, two like very crucial players who are very good at a certain role being kind of transformed to fit a system. What do you think about that?
So I think it is a positive for Reece James, at least in terms of fitness and availability. If he does not have to make those lung bursting runs forward, he can just stay in the defensive third of the pitch or whatever, and stay in the midfield. He can possibly stay fit for longer. But my fear is that does he have the range of passing to play that position?
He does.
Okay, so then I don't think that's going to be that much of a problem for him. I think it's maybe a good move. especially for him. And then Maresca also maybe has pointed out that this is the right way forward for him. For Gusto, yeah, I really don't understand how he's going to play that position. For all I've seen of Gusto, he does really well when he's into the final third. Like he's on that
Yes,
wing, he has the ball, he's going to cross it in. He's going to be, very difficult to handle in the final third. Again, I'm not quite sure he has the range to play in a center midfield position and ping passes forward and start attacks. So maybe I don't know. Maybe Gusto. So again, Gusto is young.
yeah,
There is still time for him to develop. So maybe he could uh, become that player that Maresca wants. But again, it's about fitting square pegs and round holes.
exactly.
Uh, so Chelsea, I don't know. Do you have players who can play that position that well? Like I don't know. You have a pretty long player list, so somebody could
Which
pop
position are
up.
you talking about now?
To right back and then shifting into the number 6 position.
No, but yeah, it's only these two, and that's what's
Okay.
been tried in preseason.
Mhm.
And to kind of you made a good point, right? Let's build on this kind of argument. So if we don't have a right back or left back helping out in attack, right? Who
Mhm.
else has to take the responsibility? The responsibility generally in this system falls on the eights because they operate in the half
Ah.
spaces. The wingers basically are kind of touchline wingers, and these eights kind of give the half space support in.
So who are the eights in this
So
Chelsea side right now?
currently, one of the most important eights in preseason has been Nkunku. He scored a lot of
Okay.
goals. He's very talented, and of course, he needs to find a place in the team. Hopefully, he stays fit. But the problem with Nkunku as an eight is anybody in midfield needs to be able to track back and defend, right? And Nkunku is not very good at that. His defensive side of the game is obviously not great because he's always played in the forward line. He's kind of a really good finisher, flair player. So if you're trying to fit in Nkunku as an eight, that basically introduces some defensive frailties in your system. So I don't know what's going to happen. One other eight obviously is our new signing Kieran Drewsbury Hall. He's definitely going to be playing. And the last game we also had Enzo Fernandez, the second Enzo or the first Enzo, whatever you can call in our team, play as an eight. So from the looks of it, if you want defensive stability, they probably have to go with Kieran Drewsbury Hall and maybe Enzo, and maybe Caicedo sits as the six, or Lavia has been sitting as the six. So Nkunku's position is going to be interesting because, again, to build on the argument further, where else can Nkunku play? So you have these two eights in the half space who have to defend. Nkunku is obviously good at attack, but not so good at defense. Can he play as a touchline winger? The answer is no, because he's not a touchline winger, right? He's not, the greatest at, one-on-ones out wide. He's really good at one-on-ones and manipulating the ball in and around the penalty box, but not so much out wide. Uh, and so, if we are assuming that he has to play there, he has to adapt his game. Otherwise, maybe he doesn't feature in the first 11. So that's the other headache that's coming along. And
So the
again,
strikers,
yeah,
no, so the strikers at Chelsea are, I'm sorry, I forgot that guy's name. Nicholas
Nicholas
Jackson
Jackson, yeah.
and
And Mark Guiu now, Mark Guiu from Barcelona. We also have Armando Broya,
okay,
but Mark Guiu has been starting most of the games, and he's been pretty promising in preseason.
okay.
Yeah.
So there's no chance of Nkunku playing as the striker, like
Maybe,
very.
maybe, maybe he plays as a kind of a false nine kind of a thing. But I think, in my opinion, Nicholas Jackson should be leading the line because he's good. He scored 14 goals in his first season, which is more than Drogba scored in his first season or his second season. And Nicholas Jackson has some very good traits, right? He's quick, he's skillful, he combines well with the team. So I think Nicholas Jackson should be playing. And of course, we obviously will have Palmer playing somewhere, the
Oh yeah,
highest goal plus assist player in the last season. And I don't know. I don't know where Nkunku fits in this system. But again, square peg, round hole kind of thing. The kind of stuff that happens when you have too many managers,
hmm.
over a short period of time and so on and so forth. Okay.
So can Cole Palmer play? Like he plays wide, right? In the wide
Cole
position, or will
Palmer
he?
can play wide, but again, he's better centrally as well because he's got
Okay.
really good passing range. We saw that during the Euros. He found Ollie Watkins for the goal in, I think, was that the semi-finals? I think so, right? So yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. There's a lot of questions to be answered. Who plays the two wide wingers? We have Sterling.
He
He's
should be
good at
sold, man.
certain things.
I don't know why. So Sterling and Mudryk have to be sold. The only
Mudryk, not
reason
so
we should.
much. Mudryk probably needs
Bro,
one or
he
two more
can't
seasons.
shoot, he can't pass, he can't
He
cross, he
can
can
pass
run.
though. He can pass. The problem with him is, he can pass and he can shoot sometimes. The biggest problem with him is his inconsistency. And we've talked about this. Mudryk has played very few professional games and he's still learning. Although, he's 23, 24, you'd expect him to be close to being a finished product, but he's not. But, Sterling does offer certain things. He makes good runs and things like that. Let's see what happens. Couple of things that I quickly wanted to touch upon in this system. Two players who find themselves out of contention of the starting lineup. One is Ben Chilwell. He's been
Oh,
injured,
yeah.
but he's come back in now. But as a left back who bombs forward, right? There's no space for him in the team because the left back either has to invert into midfield or he has to join the two center backs, right? So that's been interesting to see. Chilwell, who was one of the leadership players in our team, basically has no position in this current team. I don't know what's going to happen. And then the second person I wanted to talk about is Conor Gallagher, who Chelsea are trying really hard to sell to Atletico Madrid. Conor
Yeah.
Gallagher, obviously, he has certain really great traits, right? He is unrelenting in his press. He's very good defensively. He's pretty decent, in the attacking sense. He scores goals. He sets up people. But he's not as technically adept to play in the Maresca midfield system. So his first touch is not the best all the time. His passing is not top notch. And so Chelsea think that he is surplus to the system. And very much like Trevor Chalobah that we talked about in the previous season, Conor Gallagher is basically being forced out again. And of course, Chelsea fans don't like it. He, again, is a true blue Chelsea youth product who's being kind of forced out, or, basically they're asking him to sign a new contract, which he doesn't want to sign, or they're trying to force him out. So we'll see. We'll see. Some people will be up in arms. So those were the two people I wanted to talk about. Lots of things to still resolve for Chelsea, but we'll have to give it time.
So
Uh,
Ben Chilwell will be sold, right? Like he
I
can't play as
think
a center
so.
back, and I don't think he
He
can
he has
play.
been playing as a center back in this
Oh,
system. We'll see.
yeah.
We'll see what happens because Mark Cucurella has not joined. He's basically going to go straight back to Cobham, which is our training center, and kind of regain fitness. Him, Palmer, and Conor Gallagher, all three of them. So we'll see what happens. We'll see whether Chilwell has a buyer. We don't know whether he'll have a buyer because he's had many seasons where he's been consistently injured as well. So it's hard to move these kind of players. Uh, and I think the final thing that I wanted to talk about in terms of positioning, that's kind of very important, is the goalkeeping position, right? The goalkeeper has to be really good with his feet, really good at distribution. And we have Robert Sanchez, who's not very convincing. And then we got this new guy, Philip Jorgensen from Villarreal. He played a little bit in the last game, and he seemed pretty decent, with the ball at his feet. We'll see how that position turns out. And the funny thing about the Chelsea goalkeeping situation is, I think Chelsea have an insane number of goalkeepers in and around the first team. We have Robert Sanchez, we have Philip Jorgensen, we also have
Petrovic.
Dr. Petrovic.
Yeah.
On our books, we also have Kepa Arrizabalaga.
Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah,
shit.
that guy is
Oh
still
wow.
there. And then we have a whole plethora of young players. We have this guy called Gaga Slolina, who's from MLS, who we bought. We have Bergstrom, who's a young goalkeeper, Bettinelli. So you can basically field 11 of goalkeepers. I don't know what these guys are doing. They're just accumulating players, right? Uh, so that was my last point, to talk about the system and all these various pieces that still need to fall into place. A lot of moving parts. The couple of things that I wanted to kind of finish off with, which you touched upon at the beginning, is of course it's preseason. You can't read too much into the results. Couple of reasons apart from the system is, of course, many crucial players are still building up their
Yeah.
fitness, or they have not joined this group. Cole Palmer hasn't joined the group. Cucurella hasn't joined the group. I was going to say Conor Gallagher hasn't joined the group, but looks like he's not going to join the group. So maybe we shouldn't be kind of diving into the depths of despair yet. And then, the other thing that I wanted to talk about is, of course, fitness will take time to build. And we have a lot of players coming back from long-term injuries, right? We have Wesley Fofana in the
Oh,
defense, who
yeah.
was out for a year, more than a year, no games. We had Romeo Lavia, who played like 15 minutes or 20 minutes last season. That's it, crucial number 6 position. And Kunku himself was injured for most of last season, and he's come out and said that he's not at his top fitness yet. And of course, Reece James, he was injured. He had surgery on his hamstring and so on and so forth. So these are very, very crucial players who've been out and injured. And it'll take time for them to kind of get back up to peak fitness and start contributing positively. Let's see what happens. The games that we have left today, we are playing Man City in the US. We are also playing Real Madrid, on I think the 6th of August. And then I think there's one final friendly that we're going to play against Inter Milan at Stamford Bridge. So 3 kind of games to suss out what other things can go wrong and whether this positional play system is working, and see where we are in terms of the first game of the season. And Chelsea don't have an easy first game. We play Man City, I think just 2 weeks from now, just over 2 weeks from now. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, what do you think? What do you think of the overall situation that Chelsea find themselves in?
Uh, I do think that there are a few problems at Chelsea, but then again, it was expected that this was going to happen when you're going to change managers so often, and especially with Maresca playing his system and his style of football. So they do have some things to clear up, especially because you've got so many players. You need to balance the book somehow. I think, I mean, we have to give him time to see like what's going to happen and all. I really don't think that you'll get to see any proper good results. Maybe for another month and a half, because again, the players are just trying to understand what's going on. Again, so I've said this previously. Also, I'll say this again. This is a long-term project for Chelsea. I really don't think the fans should freak out too much. It's easy to say that because if, let's say, results don't pan out like they're supposed to, there'll be people saying like kick him out, sell him off, whatever. So we live in a world where it's very, short-term memory lasts long. I don't know. I don't know. I'm interested to see how things work out because
So on
yeah,
that point, let me end the podcast by asking you this question: do you think Enzo Maresca is going to last the season?
no, he won't. Sorry,
There you
no
go.
chance. It's not gonna happen.
There you go. On that
So,
note, we're signing off. Thank you again,
oh yeah,
everybody who
so
listened
so
to
so
our
before
podcast. Yeah,
signing
go
off,
ahead. Yeah, yeah.
yes, before signing off, I just want to say thanks to all the fans for listening to us
Yes.
because we crossed a small milestone, 10,000 views since we started. I mean, it's not that big, but obviously there are some people who do listen to us.
Yeah.
Thank you for subscribing to us, listening to us, sharing. Do continue sharing our clips, the long form videos or the short form. We're on Instagram as well now. So thank you for that. Do subscribe, do like, do comment. We do read your comments and reply to them as much as possible. So that actually keeps us going. So
Yeah,
this is
absolutely.
a complete, yeah. So this is all down to you guys. And yeah, to end the podcast, I think we'll talk about Maresca being sacked 6 months, 8 months down the line. I'm sorry, it'll be Frank Lampard coming back, or maybe I don't know who can come back.
Let's see. Let's see.
Who's hitting? Maybe I don't know. Who else could Chelsea bring back? It'll be interesting. It'll be fun.
Oh,
Maybe
man.
Graham Potter comes back. Who knows?
No. But yeah, I think you're probably right. Hopefully, he doesn't get fired. But again,
See,
based
I
on
don't
our
want him
track
to get
record,
fired. Yeah, I don't want him to get fired. But
yeah,
then, given how the management at Chelsea have dealt with managers,
exactly.
like any kind of this thing that goes down to like even if the players lose the morale a bit, it's always the manager that gets the sack. It's not the players who get the stick. That's just how football is now. The manager is always the first
True.
casualty.
True.
So I
And
mean,
on
let's see.
that note, signing off again. Thank you for watching, and see you again next time. Bye bye.
Yeah. Bye bye.